still in trouble.
Roll call.
Let me know how it ends.
With a fear.
Beckman,
Here.
Caldwell,
Here.
Deal, absent, Farkapisi, absent, Katsini, absent,
I'll say
Nini,
here.
Here.
Just wait 1 second.
Nini,
Here. Say here,
But
George.
soon as here.
Sheldon.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So can you do the motion?
The Oregon Public Library District provides the community with access to information, kindles the imagination of children and adults, and supports lifelong learning.
Briefly, down out of the bidding area, to the right is the washrooms, then the exit sign. In case of emergency, we will single out, for paramedics can operate. Thank you, have a good meeting.
So Ryan and I received an email from Andrea saying that she's in Minnesota again, so, and would like to attend virtually. I'd like to make a motion that we let Andrea, Farkapisi, trustee Farkapisi attend virtually. From that. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nay? Abstain. Okay. Who did second?
Sheldon.
Okay. I gotta get a phone.
She's
So do I just do one?
That's,
Or do I thought there was another number first.
Do this one, and then press 8, and then,
Okay, that's
oh, press the 8.
Oops.
She's so cute.
Now.
Andrea,
Well, hi, Andrea, Tom Caldwell, and everybody else at the table here. How are you?
hello.
Hi, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Excellent. So we voted to invite you virtually by phone, and so we're to the point where we're going to be going over the consent agenda here. So
One of the items, Andrea, it's Nancy, one of the items on the consent agenda is the minutes for the executive session from last month's meeting. Obviously, you are not going to be able to see those. If you would prefer, we will remove those from the consent agenda and we will deal with them next month.
So I take it that the people in the room have read them, and if they're okay with them, I'm just going to abstain because I don't have anything to keep, but I don't want you to remove it and wait for me. If you all agree that they represent what happened, I'm fine with that, I trust you.
okay.
Could you also tell her about 103?
Oh,
Everyone else needs to. know this too.
also, we are removing
Okay,
item
no, we
H.
don't have to remove it, we can just tell everyone it's at their place,
Oh.
a new copy.
Okay. Item H1, the, policy 1003, electronic participation at meetings. That, each of us has a slightly revised version in which, audio conference is 2 words, an open compound rather than closed, 1 word. Other than that, that's doing that 4 times is the only change to the version of 1003 that was in your board packet.
Okay.
Okay, so do I have a motion on the consent? then?
I move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second. Discussion?
Okay, as present, the pink version
With the
counts as
corrections
presented.
Well, that's a good point.
I'd rather that the motion said,
With the amended
everything
version.
except, H1, which is accepted as,
Oh, okay,
Amended,
yeah.
okay.
okay.
Got it.
Any discussion? You got that? Okay, so she wants to remove H1.
No, we're just gonna
I'd
change
like
my
better to
motion.
remove H1.
Let's just remove
That's
H1
what she
and then
said.
we'll come back to it.
I'll also suggest we should remove the executive session minutes, which are A2, because Andrea would want to abstain from those and she cannot read them.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you.
You got that? Are you willing to amend to that?
Yeah.
Okay. And did I second? Okay, all those in favor?
Uh,
What?
Any opposed and abstain? Okay. So now we're on to 1003. Anyone want to make a motion on that?
I move that we accept policy 1003 as amended.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain, okay.
But with the executive session, we're not gonna
Yeah,
vote on this now?
Oh, I thought we
need
were
to
gonna
do
wait till next
A2.
time. Okay, that's fine. So you wanna make a motion for that?
Well, no, I do not.
I will. I move that we accept the executive session minutes, A2.
Everyone should have a copy at their
The pink.
place.
Oh,
You
wait,
wanna
I'm
take a
sorry.
minute if you didn't see it?
My fault.
Okay, we got a second already.
Did you second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay. All those, any discussion? I guess we can't really discuss it. All those in favor? Oh, right, yeah. Well,
You can do that.
we can still abstain. Yeah, I always ask for all three. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
I abstain.
You're good, Andrew.
Done. All right. Let's see.
Pass these up to Ms.
I think that's it, right? Okay, President's report is page. I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, collect. Thank you. You have them all? Okay. President's report is page 25. And also, in addition to that, at your place should be a copy of the letter that I wrote to Steve Weinberg to thank him. Where is it?
Yeah,
I had it a second ago.
we'll-
I know. Oh, there it is, okay. So the board had authorized Andrea to do this in whenever it was. And she has just been so swamped that I offered to take it off her hands, and she agreed. So here is the letter, if you'd like to take a minute to look at that. She has already seen it.
I have a question. Did anything interesting come out of the legislative breakfast this year?
Yeah, I was just gonna talk about that next. Any other comments on the letter? Shall we
Nicely
move
done.
on?
Nicely done.
Okay. So yesterday, Nancy and I went to the legislative breakfast with Ryan, And I would say there were about a dozen or so Illinois representatives and senators there, and a couple of staff persons for Duckworth and Dole. So the common theme was, they all talked about the budget, they're all discouraged, they're all frustrated, they're all very embarrassed. One senator named Morrison from District 29 said that she has actually proposed a bill that would require everyone to meet 1 hour a week to discuss the budget until it's done. My favorite quote was this: "The rank and file has no toolkit to influence the battle of the titans," meaning we should be a squeaky wheel and we should call Ronner and we should call Hannigan if we want to do anything about the budget. They all said, "We'll be happy to take your calls, but we really can't do anything about it." And the highlight for me was there was a young woman there who was from Dole's staff. And I would say, how old would you say she was? Maybe 27?
I was
She was
gonna
very
say
young.
mid-20s,
Yeah.
yeah.
And she said that she was the child of Russian immigrants who came here before she was born. And she said, "They took me to the library every week. I didn't know why, but they took me to the library every week. And they told," uh-oh, we lost Andrea. Just 8-1.
Yeah, just press, you should just, go ahead, pick that up, and then press 8. And then, can you press
Oh, I
right?
got it. Here it is.
Since he pushed the
Extra
mic,
mic.
I can't do read that.
That's true.
Hello?
Hi, we're back.
We lost you.
Oh, I lost you for like a minute, yeah.
Okay.
Is there a number I can just call back on if that happens again?
No, you can't dial this machine directly. We have to call you.
Okay. Because I tried, how did you know I wasn't here?
We got a dial tone.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, she said that her parents took her every week to the library and they told her that they wanted her to learn what she wanted and say what she wanted and read what she wanted. And she just talked about the role that the library played in helping her to do those things. That was really, I kind of wish if they would have known what she was going to say, she would have been a great finale, I thought. So these were the talking points that we were given or that were on the ILA website, and I thought people might be interested in hearing some of those, so I'll pass those around. And what would you like to add?
That about covers it, except that this was the 25th legislative breakfast since NSLS started it. And we had one lady there who has been to all 25 of them. Kay will not be to any more of them probably, at least in her current role, because she's retiring. Mrs. Gravity.
Okay.
There was a picture. What happened to the picture?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, proof that we were there.
We had our picture taken. Okay, reports of other people. Anybody?
Did you get my board evaluation?
Yes, I answered you this afternoon. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'll get to it.
It's okay. I'm off for a few weeks, so don't worry about it.
Okay. There's no legal memo, right? No, nothing. No. Okay, anyone for public comment? Okay, reports of committees. Art is at our places. It has a picture of the mural. Did everyone see that? Comments, questions?
Just let me scroll a little longer.
Let me see.
Maybe,
No, it was something, I can't recall. Andrea, did you hear that question? This
No,
one right here.
I'm sorry, Andrea, somebody asked me this question when they saw it. The bottom right panel is the tree, the bottom of the tree where it's underwater. And there, it looks like there's a paw or like something like a squirrel or something on the tree. And then somebody just asked me, is that an underwater squirrel?
I doubt it.
I doubt it, but I don't, now that I'm looking at it, I'm not sure that's what that is even, so when you see it next, you can look at it.
Well, the under the water is going to be, fantasy. So it's possible, but, doubtful.
Okay, that's it, thank you.
Okay. Director's report, you know, anything that he asked you to add?
No, I just have it for the different points below.
Page 33, so,
Yep.
comments? Okay, this is going fast. So, I'm sorry, you said he had nothing else to add?
Not to the director's
Okay,
report.
so, recording of meetings, next.
And I'm going to, if you saw what Ryan
Page
sent you,
41.
and Kevin's here to answer any questions about that. Or fill them in on what you found out. It's all there.
Just, what is your bottom line recommendation?
On the report, on the
On the, yes,
videos?
what we should do?
Actually, I did some more investigation, and actually YouTube provides their streaming service for free now. So we can still stream it to YouTube using the same technology, you know, the same camera and everything else. So that technically you wouldn't have to change any. So that would save on cost.
Right.
But that's, you know, whether you choose to still record it or not, and I don't know if that's what you're deciding tonight, as to whether you're going to still record, or?
We could. At committee of the whole, the consensus really was that most people felt it had value and
To still
should
record.
continue.
Okay.
So, I mean, we could, unless I'm reading it wrong, but I think that was kind of a consensus.
Okay.
So,
If you're gonna continue to do that, then we can certainly still stream it, so it's accessible from the web, and we'll do that through YouTube. I'm still investigating, we have a YouTube channel, but I don't know the technicalness behind the scenes of what we need to do.
okay.
So, but that's, I think, the direction that we're gonna take with that. In terms of the audio, because I know that was an issue as
Yes.
well. I'm looking at a couple of different technologies. One would be, the best solution would be to hardwire it, okay? So in other words, we have microphones dropping from the ceiling, and that would be the best type of recording. However, for graphics, I just ordered them a portable Bluetooth solution for their video camera that they use, which we could also use with this camera. I just don't know how it would react in this kind of environment. That's like a $200 solution. The difference between the two, the cable solution is like $1,000. The Bluetooth is more like $200. So I'm gonna actually use theirs, and I should have that in the next couple days and do some testing with it. So that might be a very viable option to solve the audio recording side of it.
So do you think the best thing to do would be, I mean, could we test it at a meeting
Mhm.
sometime?
Yeah.
And then we could decide if.
Decide if that's
the
sufficient or
quality is-
not, sure, yep.
What do other people think how should we proceed?
I like that idea.
So is graphics going to use it soon?
It was not my idea to reserve it, and we wouldn't be using it at night.
Right, so that was the thought process, is that we share the technology, so when, you know, they primarily use that to record staff and other programs and stuff during the day, so.
No, I was more interested in how you felt it worked with graphics. So you're going to find out and experiment, is that what
Yeah,
you're doing?
yep, exactly. So I think it's, the way that it's designed, it's more of a lapel type solution. But some of the reviews did use it in this kind of environment and felt that it sufficed in this kind of environment. So that's why I'm kind of thinking, well, let's test it in this environment, see if.
Could you guys try and speak up? I'm really struggling.
I'll stand over here. How's that? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So we're gonna
So,
try
Matt,
that
Could
solution.
you recap for her? What, Andrea, are you getting?
Just
what-
continue.
Okay.
Continue.
So I'm gonna test that within the next couple of weeks, so, we should have an answer for you, whether that's sufficient or not. We can certainly try it at the next meeting.
Well, it sounds like it's possible that what you do, testing with graphics, might give you enough basis for making a recommendation to us without us having to do that.
Correct.
We might be able to do that at management meeting too,
Yep.
we're sitting in the same room.
Yep.
We can test it for you.
My only concern that I want to test is, many times when you have something in this environment, this equipment, the teleconferencing equipment, is designed for that, to counteract the paper noise that you might have and the shuffling noise that you might
Yes.
get on the table.
Yes.
This equipment's designed for that. This piece of equipment that I'm getting for them isn't necessarily designed for that kind of environment. It's designed to be warm,
Yeah.
but it's still a microphone and can still be used in other environments. I just have a concern that you might pick up table noise that you might not want to hear.
Mhm.
The wired solution would eliminate all that. But again, it's more money. So we're trying to keep costs down and look for other possible solutions, so we should know within a short period of time.
May I ask a question? If you weren't using that wired for recording, would it be able to be used just in a meeting so that people could hear better? Or would it be tied just up to the recording?
It would just be tied for recording purposes. I think in this environment, you'd have some possible feedback situations just because of the way that this audio system is designed. So, but we'd have to test for that.
My
and see.
question, follow-up on that though, is could it be integrated with this type of phone system? I know this will accept an auxiliary jack. Would we be able to plug in if we had an overhead mic into this for better reception?
Remember when Bob Deal, back when we were in the meeting
Yes.
rooms and we were feeding, he got echoing back because this was actually picking up
The
speakers.
amplification.
So he was actually getting what's called a feedback loop.
Yes.
So that's why he heard all that echoing. This isn't really designed for that because this is designed to pick up all ambient sound. So if we have speakers running, and I'm just saying that environment, you can
I'm not
work.
saying speakers.
But I know, but in this case, yes, you could technically, because that's what I was alluding to. You don't have the speakers in this environment. But that's exactly what we did before. I actually pumped the microphones that you all had in the meeting rooms, and I put it through this so he could hear. The downside was he was picking up all the speaker noise that was in the room as well. But no, you could do that as well. The downside to that is then you have a cable that's then tied into this, so now you have a cable on the floor and everything else. So it's not, it kind of removes it from being a nice cordless solution at that point. But technically, yes, you could. Put the microphone.
So this was, did you have something to ask me?
Can I make this comment? Yeah, we're talking about the audio quality. I mean, for participating remotely like I'm doing now, we might need to do that better, but as far as recording meetings for the public, have we noticed any downfall in the usage of that since the more difficult times have finished?
Yes, from the numbers that Director Rivers shared.
Yes, at the last committee of the whole, Andrea, after you needed to sign off, we did discuss that. And I don't have my packet here, but Ryan did have data that Kevin collected for him that does show a downturn in it. Despite that, though, my interpretation of what people said was that enough people valued it that we didn't really discuss whether we should continue doing it.
Mm-hmm. Do we have any figures on what it costs us? I mean, even if we don't change anything?
And what does it cost a year now,
Good.
Kevin?
It's roughly, well, that would change. That's what I was saying at the beginning about we change over to YouTube, so that service would then become free. Other than that, it's just staff time.
So that would save like 20.
So right now it's costing us about
27,
2,700.
yeah.
So the product that we're using to host it, or I might not be saying it right, but the product you subscribe to keep it going now is $2,900?
20, it's about 20, somewhere between 22 and 20, or 23 and 24, somewhere.
Okay, so $2,400. It's up for renewal. They
For a
have,
year plus
for
the
a year,
last, the staff time.
correct,
It doesn't include staff time.
Correct.
correct.
And how many people have been doing it on average in a month?
I don't have that.
We have those numbers in the last packet, we don't have it in this one. I'd say the numbers are relatively low, we're talking about dozens, not hundreds.
Maybe, well, it's roughly about 8. I think the last count for last month was about 8. Now, if you look at the full statistics, there's a lot of views, but outside the district, and so we narrowed down the views of within the district. And so it's very minimal. Compared to what it was a year ago, it's nowhere compared to what it was a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, not including staff time, if you take 2,300, divide that by 12, and divide that by 8. I mean, and Kevin's time is valuable doing the recording and setting that up, but not, which is, I'm sure, even more expensive than the service. It's $24 a viewing.
That's what I figured out last time too, as I recall. I don't have my notes with me.
That was at the 2,300 though,
That's at the
Yeah.
previous
Now
part
it's
we
free.
had, yeah. Well,
except for
Free plus
staff.
staff
That
time.
doesn't, but if you include, let's say, the staff time of, 4 hours a month, 4 times 12 times, that's 48 hours of staff time, and, I don't even know what the average staff time to do this, but even only, and I know it's much more than $10, but even only at $10, that's $480. I'm sure it's much more than that. So I think we should just realize that to keep this going, it's not nothing.
It's not, what did you say?
it's not nothing.
It's
And
not nothing.
I'll agree, it's not a zero cost item, we still have staff that we're putting towards it. But I think if we can cut down our production costs to at least have the streaming be free, we bring ourselves in line with doing this as cost effectively as possible while still providing access to citizens who can't attend the meetings directly.
Kevin, staff time using YouTube would be basically equivalent to what you're doing now?
Yeah, actually what happens is once we're done with the meeting, the next day I upload, which basically I just start the video and just let it run and then upload it. So there's, maybe half an hour. 15
But you think
minutes.
it'd be about the same?
Yeah,
we're
the
doing it
process
now,
would be
I mean,
the same.
okay.
We're just talking about the cost at this
Okay.
point for the service.
Kevin, is this something that during the recording, you wouldn't have to be here to make sure it's all going all right?
Yeah, typically I'll step in and kind of check on things. If I know I'm not gonna be here like I am tonight, in this
Right.
capacity, yeah, I usually start it and then, I'll continue about my business and then, I'll check in on you guys and then especially if we're gonna have an executive session or whatever, we'll make sure it's, stopped.
Right, because Kevin normally works Tuesday evenings. So in that regard, he doesn't have to sit here for the whole meeting. He just pops in, gets it going, and like he said, the next day uploads it. Does that help, Andrea?
Yeah. Is anybody interested in the motion to discontinue this? I certainly am.
Well, I would recommend at this point to gather more information from Kevin as far as how it reacts in the different environments. And then also, give us an opportunity next month to have Andrew here to have a more full discussion.
If I can suggest though, I would like to move right now that we discontinue the current hosting service and start using YouTube as a cost savings measure.
When's
Can you
when's
do
this
that
con-
immediately?
When's this contract done?
The contract's up on the 28th,
Oh,
This
Oh,
month.
oh, all
February.
right, well, then we do.
so
yeah,
I'll be
We do need a
discontinuing
motion.
it anyways
All right.
at that point.
Could you state your motion again, please?
I move that we discontinue using our current streaming service and switch to the free offering from YouTube as a cost savings measure.
I'll second.
Discussion? Let's have a roll call since it's.
And I do have one question. So this motion is we're gonna use YouTube, however, we may have a change in the near future if the other works.
Yeah.
Well, it's still YouTube. It's how we record, not how we
Just
stream.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
We're not even discussing how we're recording or who's recording yet. This is,
We're just getting rid of it, okay.
Okay, so let's have a vote.
Sheldon,
Aye.
Katsini,
aye.
Parkapisi,
Aye.
Nimi,
Aye.
Colvin, Beckwith,
Aye.
Dean is absent. Ayes have it.
Okay, so point and second.
I can tell you that, I got a email from Tiffany today to Ryan, and the update is that she's in the process of obtaining the other millwork and carpet quotes. You should be able to sign those by the end of this week. I've been told that the millwork would be 6 weeks out once it is signed. It's the same with the flooring. So the project is about 6 weeks away, and we can set it to be 7 to play it safe if you would like. The youth furniture is already in the works. The staff lounge furniture still needs to be quoted and signed. We did make, and I apologize, and tell me if I'm repeating that, when I think Tiffany told you that we're dropping the counter height in the staff lounge to be ADA. We're doing the whole counter except for the island, that'll be 36, the other will be 34. She sent us, and the small committee that has been working on checking it, all of the stuff for the staff lounge out, she sent us the information on the sink and the faucet. We were able to react to that and tell her that we wanted the sink to be just one sink we talked about, and bigger, and an undermount, so they're gonna do that. And then the other thing is that she found a really good package for stainless steel appliances. And so we checked those to make sure that they would fit right. The refrigerator was a little off. We needed to make the freezer part a drawer. So I think we're moving on all of it, but it looks like, she will talk to Ryan towards the end of the week, but it looks like about 7 weeks out. That's all I have.
Questions?
Can I ask a question about the tween space?
Yes, sure.
After last month's meeting, last month's meeting, I went out to where the tween space was to just picture it. And I noticed right in front of where they're going to put, the sign that says the point, like it's on those steel girders, vertical steel girders. I don't know what they're called.
Yes,
There's a camera.
yes,
It seemed like is that going to be moved? Is that staying?
We talked about that. I'm gonna let Kevin answer that for you.
Hi, Andrea. Yep, we're gonna move that. It won't be there, so it won't be in view.
Okay. Just wondering.
Good catch.
Are the appliances commercial grade?
I'm sorry?
Are the
Yes.
appliances commercial grade? For the
Aren't they?
staff?
Wait a minute.
No, they're not
Because
commercial.
I thought in a previous life that we had to have commercial grade appliances.
No.
Okay.
No.
It's,
If you were talking about what we used to have, the cafe,
They
then
have
you'd
to
be
be
talking
functional,
commercial
okay.
because you're selling a product,
Mhm.
whereas this is just for staff.
Okay.
So, yeah, you don't fall into that same category.
That's a deal.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay. Fundraising.
Okay, I just got a text from Ryan this evening, and he said, one thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned, the fundraising update. He said the doodle poll went out, and the ad hoc committee will meet in late February or early March, and that's about all he had on the fundraising update. Okay.
Moving on. Doug.
Evening. Andrew, can you hear me all right?
Excuse me?
Can you hear me all right?
Do you want to?
Guess not.
Okay, here we go.
All right, I'm moving.
Here's Doug.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so you have in front of you kind of a bullet point of mid-year report. Andrea, I'm sorry you don't have one because you're not here. But basically, if you've been following along with my reports, it kind of reiterates a lot of that information that I've already given you. I'm going to probably present a little bit more detail, but I'm going to read these bullet points, Andrea, so that you can hear them, since you can't see them.
Okay.
1, the library has a good cash balance with over $6 million in cash and a little over $1 million in investments. We're working on increasing the investment so we can get better return. In fact, I'm probably going to be talking with Courtney, our representative at PMA, and get some more CDs shortly. Number 2, revenues are coming in as expected, basically because we've received all the property tax revenue, and that's the majority of what we receive. The only exception is the per capita grant, which is budgeted at $83,000 some odd dollars. And due to the financial condition of the state of Illinois, the amount and timing of the receipt of these funds is uncertain. So I know in the past when the state of Illinois was going through some difficult financial state times, even though it hasn't really changed, they reduced the amount of the per capita grants. So I anticipate going forward that the amount will be reduced and also the timing will be late. So I'm not sure if we'll even get the per capita grant in this fiscal year. Expenditures are running under budget by $241,000. This is about 6.6% under the expected budget through December 31st. By comparison's sake, last year, as of December 31st, the expenditures were $397,000, almost $398,000, or 10.9% below budget. So we're showing less of a favorable variance, and that's because we were cutting, the budget a lot closer. We're still 6.6, which is pretty good, but a caveat there, and that's bullet point 4. Salaries, materials, and capital expenditures make up 60% of the favorable variance to budget. And some things to keep in mind about these categories. 1, salaries increase in the second half of the fiscal year due to the January 1st raises. So you're going to see more salary expense in the second half of the year than the first half. So then our favorable variance will dry up due to salaries. Materials are purchased throughout the year, but there's an increase at the end of the year due to selectors knowing what is available. So selectors will choose materials that they think is appropriate for the library, but they don't want to spend all their budget at once because they don't know when good material is going to be coming out throughout the year. So they will be a little conservative in their purchasing, especially if a lot of good material comes out at the end of the year. So once they get closer to the end of the year, they know what's going to be coming out in that, so they'll make all their selections at that point. Not all their selections, but they will increase their selections. And also, the largest portion of the capital expenditures are the staff lounge and tween area projects. We all know these projects are just starting to the phase of where we're going to start paying for them. So the favorable variance that we see because of those projects will then also disappear. And I was estimating out, and as I thinking the expenditures, we're going to see a 3 to 4% favorable variance to budget at the end of the fiscal year. So we'll be under budget, but not as great as we are currently at half the year. So that's about it. Are there any questions? Very good. No? Okay, great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Ted.
Next is RFID, it's on page 43.
I'm gonna let Kevin take this one.
This is a fun one.
They're making you
What a
one.
star.
I'm gonna grab a chair. if you want. You wanna sit down?
Seriously.
So, I take it you all have read Ryan's summary of what we're looking at. And that what he's proposing to you is the closure of the library
to do this project. So in the overall timeline, stemming back to 2014 actually, we've taken a lot of effort to look at a lot of different situations and scenarios to deal with this project. As you can imagine, retagging 90,000, actually more than 90,000 items, 190,000 items, at least touching them, to determine those 90,000 tagged items is quite immense. So, in cooperation with the management team and also staff, we've done actually some testing, some scenario testing to come up with some time estimates to determine how long this will take. And so this timeline of closure is out of all that testing. So we've worked really hard at looking at all the options, you know, with trying to avoid closing, and it really has all boiled back to the best scenario is closing for this brief period of time. Any questions out of this? It's a very technical situation, so I'm not sure exactly.
I'll throw out a
Okay,
question.
go ahead.
So the retagging process itself, is it what you would describe as expert work or unskilled work?
It's pretty much just about unskilled work in terms of, it's more of a manual process than anything else. There is a little bit of skilled work in that, and
Yeah,
what I
you
mean
want
by
it
that
done
is,
right.
or what, well,
Well, here's what I'm really getting at. Is this the sort of thing where an army of volunteers coming in for a day or two could speed up the process?
good question. We actually used volunteers in the original tagging project many years ago. And in that project, we actually used both staff and volunteer time. Volunteer time was used and it was also monitored. So we didn't just let volunteers go and have at it. We had to have staff involved with them and monitor the volunteers so that we knew that the tagging process was happening in accordance with what we needed to have happen. So I'm sure you're wondering, can we use volunteers in this case too? Yes, we can. However, in the case of the original tagging project, we didn't close, we remained open. But that was because we actually tagged first before delivering out the equipment to the public. Okay, we didn't deliver our self-checks out there, we weren't really using it. We did that project in approximately about 6 months. And by the time it totally got tagged, because we had items naturally out with the public, by the time they returned and everything else, the whole project really stemmed over the course of a year. The situation that we're faced with right now is we have existing equipment that's both staff at the CERC desk and technical services and also the self-checks. We're using that equipment. So if we were to start tagging with people in the stacks and volunteers and everything else, what potentially could happen is now you're going to have an impact of self-checks not reading those old, what would be the new tags, and so we would be pushing more people to the CERC desk. So to stay open and do that, you're actually going to have an impact in service in the circulation area. So the best scenario that we could come up with was actually to close the library so we can tag it within the shortest period of time. And then when we actually reopen, we'll have the new self-checks out, we'll have new software and equipment at the CERC desks that will handle all the new tagged items. It's really, we feel, the best way to go. Whether or not we use volunteers, actually if we close, we'll have plenty of staff to be able to do this. The volunteers would only play a part in is if we stayed open. There was an area that we looked at, and one of those areas was to close down sections of the library in the stacks to then tag those areas, and we would remain open. But again, you have an impact in the circulation area that we felt we did not want to degrade the performance that we get out of those self-checks right now. And I think we've done a really good job over the years of utilizing our self-checks, which actually Biblioteca, who sells, whose equipment we use, was quite impressed that out of the statistics of our usage of the self-checks as it stands right now. And we expect actually that number to go up with the new self-checks. It would also prolong the process too if we did not
close, the process would not take a week. It would take anywhere from 2 to 3, possibly months, to get this kind of project done. And then you would have, again, that impact at the circulation area.
Ryan said to share with you the fact that he had contacted some other directors, and if it's, the ones who just did it as they went were the ones who were tagging for the first time, because then you just did it as it went, and it worked fine. But he said he did talk to the director, Scott Davis over at Fremont. Fremont did it where they closed, and I'm not sure if it took a month, but they paid people to come in and re-tag. It cost $30,000 to $40,000 at night. They would come in when they were closed. That would still complicate things though, because of what Kevin's describing up at the front, that they wouldn't be working right at the self-checks.
So I have 2 questions. So I'm sorry for asking quite so many. I assume that these 2 technologies are not only incompatible, but mutually interfering. So you could not have both tags on a book at once, is that correct?
You have to kill them.
Yeah.
Well, they won't necessarily interfere, but the manufacturer recommends to do what's called kill it. You strike a blade, some kind of scoring through it. They won't necessarily interfere with each other. The tags will remain on the items. The only items that the tags will be removed from is CDs and DVDs, for obvious reasons.
The reason I'm asking, I'm just wondering if there's any way you can add the new tags without removing the old.
Well, we're not going to remove the old.
I mean,
It means will it function?
can you continue to use the self-checkouts and slowly add the new tags to the devices?
Good question, no.
Okay.
We've been-
Had to verify.
That's why I started off by saying
Yeah.
we've looked at every avenue
The
quite
other
extensively.
This sounds like a task that is labor intensive. So it sounds like this is an effort-driven task.
Yes.
My concern is not so much about whether or not the library has to close, but the duration. A week seems like a long time.
They have figured this out, like.
Yes.
Yeah, we've done a lot of
Figured this out with what
calculations.
we have.
Are you doing
For
9
staffing
to 9,
now.
12-hour shifts?
Basically, we would, try and bear with me
Okay.
on explaining this, because it does get confusing. What we've done is we've done tests in different scenarios of the actual equipment and physically what it's taken to do a number of items, okay? So we know we're pretty confident what those numbers are in terms of how long it's gonna take. Different people, we've tried with different people to come up with an average number, okay? Out of that, then what we've done is, and I just got the numbers back from managers today. What we're doing is for that closure of that week, we've gone through and I know now how many people are in at each hour of the day for that week, so we'll know what our staffing is. So there's a peak time, if you will, of how many staff we have here. Now, we'll be using, at this point, we'll be using 14 stations to do the tagging, and each one of those stations will have a person doing the tagging, and we'll also have what we're calling runners to actually go and get the items and materials and then pass that off to the person that's actually doing the tagging, and the runner will then go back and put that,
So the bottleneck is the 14 stations, not the number of people that are using them.
Correct.
Okay.
So we're using, like I said, we've spent quite a bit of time, not only myself, but Amy Meyer, who's the head of TS, and we've worked together on this whole project for several weeks now, and figuring out, calculating, and coming up with the scenario.
And I assume there's no way to get additional stations temporarily to speed up the process.
Oh, we could, but that would cost money. So I don't know what that is. But all that, this period of time of closure is based on the 14 stations that we would be using. And that's within equipment that we have here.
Okay.
Is the bookmobile down or out?
We were talking
Good
about still
question.
having the bookmobile go out in
Yeah.
the evening and stuff like that.
When it's still
And then
providing
if there
service.
were times during the day when it wasn't in use, we might, because last time we parked it at, got permission to park it at Jewel, and that was very effective. So we would use that as much as we could. We also talked about doing other outreach if we had enough staff to do that.
Like when we closed during construction,
Yes.
Yes.
when you did to Panera and those other.
Yes. Now, the other item that Ryan mentioned in his letter to you is about using other portions of the library. Now, as you all know, we have the steel gate, the roll gate, that cordons off the main portion of the library. And we're looking at potentially staying still open to the public for picking up of holds. The bookstore could still be, the Friends store could still be open, and also programs would still be accessible. So we would not be really totally closed, but we're looking at trying to utilize those spaces to still provide as much service as we can.
Okay, if the bottleneck, or what is driving this to being closed for a week, is the 14 stations, could we, by starting earlier in the day and working until later, maybe with volunteers for part of it, could we cut a day or two off of this?
These are slightly rough numbers because I didn't have the schedules back from the manager, so we're still tweaking some of those numbers. And the idea is that we would still have staff here working their normal hours. So we're looking at on an average of having 12 hours of work time to be able to do this. So that's 14 stations at 12 hours a day, in a
Okay,
sense.
does that mean that all of 9 to 9, you look like you have 14
Yes.
staff people, so they will be
Oh, yeah.
busy
Yep.
all,
14 times 3, because it's 3-person people working each station.
Yeah,
yeah.
staff is not the problem. And as George pointed out, if we had more equipment, could we get it done quicker? That answer would be yes, because we definitely have the staff in per day. But the 14 stations is based on, and it's not the computers that are the problem, it's actually the RFID equipment is, utilizing what we have on hand to do this project. So if we were to get more equipment, that would have a cost to it. We would rent it from the biblioteca to do that. But we certainly have the staff to be able to do it. This all boils down to, we add more stations, and yes, technically the day count would have been narrowed. So we're still getting, like I said, it's, in this circumstance, we're going with the 14 stations.
How much more would it cost, I know I'm asking without giving you any time to prepare, to increase the day beyond 12 hours?
I don't know that I can answer that one. That would
And
be
we do
administration
have,
to.
there are
to figure it out.
shelvers who are in here
Earlier.
earlier, are there
Actually, we
not?
have some staff members who are here as early as 6.
Some, like in
In
Texas.
Texas.
Yes, and so like I said, those are the numbers that I just got back today. So we're going to be putting those numbers together to determine at what hour of the day, how many staff do we have. And also the other thing to bear in mind is, some people work in the evening, but that just may be because of the schedule of the library. But since we would be closed, we might be able to compress some of those people in when they normally work. So again, it's more of the station issue. It's not the matter of how, the lack of staff in other words, to be able to do this project.
Well, although if each of those 14 stations needs 3 people,
Sometimes in the evening there could be, we
Well,
might have to ask.
No, it'd be 2 people per station.
2,
just
okay, gotcha.
one runner and one person doing it. And for all of the time, let's say from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., there are 28 people
No.
here for that whole time.
No.
Then if there aren't, then we have the potential to get stuff done a little more quickly.
If we move people like to the 6 in the morning, we would have to have some staff who would be willing to move and come in earlier, because that's
Right.
the time that would be more difficult.
These numbers that we're basing on is what the normal schedule would be.
Yeah,
we've not gone beyond that. Like I said, I just got these numbers back today from managers. So we have not sat down and said, okay, well, how can we shift people around? We've not gone to that point yet, if that makes any sense. In other words, we're just working with the normal.
Possibly shift people around, or possibly have a couple of volunteers in to, and I'm assuming that working as a runner is going to take minimal training. It's to go find the material and bring it back.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so,
We have 2 middle schools and a high school within walking distance of here, just saying.
They're still in school.
I have another point of view that I know there's not an answer, but I still want to bring it up just for consideration. And what is gonna be a bigger inconvenience to the public? Waiting in line to be checked out a little bit longer than normal, or closing down for up to a week? What's gonna inconvenience the public more? And what's gonna upset the public more? And as I think about this, I feel right now that the public would be a little more understanding, waiting in line a little longer to check something out, when they still have the entire library, have access to the entire library. I think I feel like we're looking at ourselves inwardly on what's best for us right now in getting something done, instead of what's best for the community.
Well, I know this is a major deal, but closing for a week still, I wish we didn't do that. So I'm with Tom on that, and I'm thinking, in my mind, library, that some very popular areas, like the preschool room, where those books circulate a lot, or you guys know where they go first. I'm thinking some of our nonfiction rarely go. So if we could close for lesser days, let's say 2 or 3, get the majority of the most popular areas done, and then whittle at the rest, that maybe some people would be inconvenienced, but not a lot. I really don't like to see the library closed for a week. And I know your side of it, I've been there. But I don't know.
I
Well, I
may be
think it's all our time.
misremembering it, but I'm thinking we didn't close
For the
for a whole
construction.
week when we moved.
Yeah, I'm agreeing.
I'm thinking we were down for about 3 days, and that was for moving the entire collection. I'll grant you it's not as large as it wasn't as large as it is now, but still.
I feel
it-
much
a
better if we
full
get down
week
to
closed
days,
for
not a
this
week.
is just managing to sound longer than it should take, which may show my ignorance more than anything else, or my lack of appreciation about everything that's involved. But it does seem like we should be able to manage this without being closed for that long.
What
Yeah.
percent of the collection is out at a given moment?
Oh, we have that number. Wasn't that 1,290, like 90,000 or something?
No, I need to get that number. I don't want to misquote the law.
I mean, to me, it is somewhat of a moving target. I can see why, because I've been there too in different ways, and I can see why it is better customer service to get this, whatever the percent is, say it's 30%, I'm just saying that, but if you could get 70% of the things done, then when you bring the system up, at least there's not a huge long queue of people who want to check out their stack of preschool books. I don't think it's going to be a little bit longer wait. I think it's a long line.
Well, are we only talking about the self-checks being affected? So it would be only the people that are doing the self-checks, or
No, it's
circulation?
both. It's both. The circulation does have the same issue,
Okay.
because they would still have the older equipment. And so there's a point at which, think of it like a bell curve, that it would start out, you'd get one here and there, but as you start retagging more and more and more, there's gonna be a point at which you have to determine to flip it, but you still have a problem. In other words,
Yeah.
flipping meaning you have to
Yeah.
bring on the new
New one.
equipment, but yet you still have old tags that won't be read, so
And the
you
stuff's
still
on the
have an
shelf,
issue.
and people are welcome to take it.
Say that again?
The stuff's still on the shelf, and if people have access, they'll take it in their pile and they'll give you something that's not retagged. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, once you put the new equipment in, it's not gonna read the old tags, so they're still gonna have a problem. They're still gonna have to go over to the CERT desk.
So what does the
to have it
CERT
dealt
desk
with.
have to do? Retag it right there on
No,
the
no,
spot?
no, they can read they can scan the barcode of it
Oh, I see.
to be able to check it out, but now you're back to a manual process, so.
Right.
You can't gauge how many people are gonna be going to the self-check. I mean, we already know it's 50% usage. So at some point, you're gonna have an awful lot of people standing in line at two, and we only have two self-checks, or two staff
And on
stations.
top of that, if you're doing barcodes, it's one at a time. They
Right.
can't just read
So-
an entire stack of books, so it really
Just, it
slows down
can,
a lot.
it could be 3 at a time. They've got the portable, one that
Yes,
they
Ted,
use. So
yes, you
it could just be assumed that for that week or whatever, that one is manned right there,
Could we set up another station where the security people are? Another CERT station, and that would
The
be
one,
arranged
the
with-
one issue you're gonna run into is we only have two stations that can deal with credit card pay. So if you can imagine that now you're gonna have somebody go over to the security station, and now they gotta go back and either wait or go back in the line to deal with a money transaction issue, which they have to deal with when they're going to the self-check, and they have a finer fee and they can't check it out, and they have to go over. But that's because they've got a fine and fee.
Can we override
because of
that for a month if they're fines? I mean, just.
Well,
so
we could
don't
even,
get-
we could use signage, we could have staff members or even
Oh, yeah.
volunteers guiding people which way to go. I mean,
Okay, we don't have to solve all the problems here tonight, but what do we want to, what is the consensus of what we want to happen next?
Well, I just have one more
Okay,
comment.
please,
It's
sorry,
this,
I don't mean to
it's-
cut you off.
It's clear that you and the staff have really looked into this, and I really appreciate that. I would just like to have one more look at for, is there anything else that we're missing, any other options that we're missing? And I just, how about opening up for 3 hours at night? You know, still giving the public access to come in if they really need something. I'm just gonna push back a little bit and say, have we considered every option available out there instead of closing down for an entire week?
We've considered an awful lot. Closure was not the immediate consideration. Like I said, we looked at closing down sections of the library. Every time we looked at something, there's an impact at CERC. So we couldn't ignore that either. And I think all staff are in agreement that we have a good representation at the self-checks, and we don't want people to get the wrong impression that, especially when we put new self-checks in, and now they start having a problem. They're not gonna understand that it's not the self-check. They're not gonna understand that it's an old tag. So you have to realize that you might degrade the impression of this new equipment, and now it's not working, and why isn't it working? Why did you put in something new that's not
Okay.
working?
with what, just as a possible kind of think about this, what Jude said about, sort of, okay, maybe we close for 3 days, and during that time, we do all of the children's stuff and all of the adult fiction.
That was Sue that said that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We do the most.
And
certain-
then-
Most CERT, whatever.
And then just put up some signage that says, during the transition, if you're checking out nonfiction, please go, the self-check, please go to the CERC desk. Yeah,
I think if we
and
have,
have that there for a week, or, I can't imagine it would be more than 2 before we would have had a chance to get all that done also. And we've cut our closed time by quite a bit.
So would I be correct in saying that, to tell Ryan, that this is that your recommendation is, if at all possible, to minimize the closure to a lot less days? Or look at other options?
I think what we'd like to see
That's
are
what
more
I'm hearing.
recommendations, and let me try to summarize my thoughts, and everybody tell me if you agree. I've been through this type of transition with software systems before. The projects work pretty much the same way. At some point, you have a bottleneck. You have to figure out what that bottleneck is. It sounds like you have. The bottleneck is the number of machines. How do we increase throughput so that we decrease the amount of closure time? It sounds like all of the options we have for keeping the library open will just wind up prolonging pain, not solving the problem. So how do we minimize that closure time by getting as much work done in as little time as possible? And how much more will it cost us to do that beyond working with what we've already budgeted for normal staff time?
So that's the
That was
information we need to
another
get.
question is, how much would it cost to get to go ahead and rent 2 or 3 more stations?
Or 6 or 7 or whatever it
Either
would take
increasing
with.
the number of stations or increasing the number of work hours, whichever option works better, or
Yeah.
combination of options
See,
work better.
We can look into
And
it, that's a good idea.
If it's only a few $1,000s as opposed to closing for,
It's the,
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to
Well,
closing.
And we
If I
all
could-
agree with
Yeah.
you, no, we
Yeah.
never like to
That's a
close
hard
the
one.
library.
Nobody
Yeah.
likes to
So
close.
the library.
If I were to ask you though, in your mind, what would a number be acceptable?
Days or?
Days.
Days.
I don't want to actually answer that question because I can tell you from past projects.
Then that's
the
what
worst-
you get.
The absolute worst thing you can do in project management is give somebody a date to plan for.
Well,
You want to look at the number of, the amount of effort that needs to be done and see if you can compress your project time.
Oh, I know I can
You-
compress
You've
it.
got, you've got 3 items here. You've got cost, you've got time, and you've got requirements. Requirements we've already got locked down. We know how much effort we need to do.
Mhm.
Now we have to adjust cost and time. Right now, our cost is as low as possible and time is way too high. Let's look at where we can adjust that triangle.
thank you.
Okay,
Can you ask Andrea if she wants to say anything?
Oh,
Andrea, is there anything that you want to add?
Yes, I've been listening to all of this discussion, so I'm taking it that you need stations to change each book over.
correct.
So we're limited to, can we figure out what would be the bottlenecks in the stations? I take it, the stations are the bottlenecks. So even if we could get 200 volunteers in the library over a single day, and each volunteer could do 200 books, or whatever it is, we would still be limited based on that bottleneck book. So can we figure out what exactly has to happen at that station so all the prep work is done, the maximum, the right amount of people for each station, so that the person doesn't have to pull the book, open it to the right page, slap on the sticker themselves, and then run it to the machine. The person at the machine should only be doing the machine portion while other people are doing everything else. Number 1. Number 2, can we make sure that whatever length of time we close it, it's certainly not within, a finals week or AP test or some big thing going on.
We already addressed,
Or some
we already addressed that, Andrea, as far as finals week. We were looking at that, whatever week it was, we were trying to make sure it was the least impact and it would be before summer reading. But it doesn't have to be a week, we're getting the message.
whatever time that we're closing, we should make sure that it's, a time period with the least amount of impact. It's going to impact certain people, no matter what. If somebody ends up without a job the day before, they're going to want to go to the library, use their library, and, we should be able to also talk to the other libraries surrounding us, where they can go.
just as another.
Can I answer her question? You had a comment regarding the steps in the procedures of the tagging. We actually created different scenarios to prove times that it would take. And interestingly enough, what we thought would be a good procedure actually took more time. So we've done quite extensive testing as far as what the actual steps are and who's to be doing what within those steps. So we have that pretty well worked out already.
Do you think it's possible for you to have another couple of scenarios for committee of the whole March 1st?
Or to come back with days, or how many days, if we could get more equipment?
Well, let me do this, let me go back and find out what the costs would be
Okay.
to get equipment, to raise the amount of stations. In theory, that should shorten the time. And then let's see where that falls and see what, because I can't tell you what that cost is. I have to go back to Biblioteca and find
Okay.
out what that fee would be.
Okay,
So I can get that, certainly, and then also then to see, what it would take to do it in 3 days, 4 days. I don't know what,
For volunteers, I mean, I would certainly take time off from work if I certainly could. With enough advance notice and outside the business season, I could do that. I'm sure there are plenty of other people you would consider qualified to do it, and maybe there's some qualified human beings in there to help if possible.
well, let me do some number reworking first, and then we can bring that back to you all and go from there then.
okay.
Just
Right,
as a
We need to move on if we can, so quickly, please.
Well, just, if the meeting rooms, for instance, would still be available, maybe we could, I don't know how much would be involved in, I'm sure Wi-Fi works, our Wi-Fi works there. So, yeah, what I'm saying, maybe make sure that for the day, however many days we are closed, make sure people know that,
Yep.
yeah, there are a few things that you can still do.
Sure, and again, that's what we're looking at, is how can we best utilize those areas to provide those services? Sure, certainly.
Okay, all right, let's move on, please. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so policy 101 for bylaws and a draft of a new policy on advisory groups. So, I think this is our fourth pass at the bylaws. And what I tried, I wrote 1057. I tried to take all of your input and what I thought everyone's consensus was of committee of the whole. I have to say, I didn't really like the term advisory groups when George suggested it, but I think it worked so beautifully. It's really nice to have that term that doesn't say committee, it doesn't say board, and I thought it worked really, really well. So anyway, what are your thoughts? Do you want to take them in either this order or the other order? Preference? Okay, let's do bylaws first up, please. You have a clean copy on page 46, so that you can actually read it. There are so many tracks, but if you looked at the tracks, they start on page 55. Somebody would like to make a motion, who would get the discussion going.
I move that we accept policy 1001 as presented.
I'll second that. Discussion. There's no discussion.
There's a comment I'll make. I don't know if this is just how it's printed on this version, but I see some opened.
Yes, I'll fix that.
Okay.
The one at the
Open
bottom,
headings,
yeah, I
yes.
see it, yeah.
Page 47.
Excuse me?
Page 47.
Page 47, I'll fix it. There's another one, but I think it'll be
I
fixed.
thought I fixed it already when I sent the final copy out. That
Oh.
lost.
Section 53, the bottom.
Yeah, that one will move when the other one moves, probably. Okay, so no discussion?
I think we finally have something we can agree on.
Or we're just tired.
Look at
Do it. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstain? All right, good. All right, let's do 1057. So I'll make a motion that we approve policy 1057 as presented.
One second.
Discussion on this one.
Can I tell you what Ryan asked me to?
Please.
He said that he believes this is the best of all worlds. It provides us the opportunity to call in experts and get advice when we need it in a controlled way, and he's behind it 110%. The statement of purpose, and he and I both were just knocked out with how well written it was. I thought maybe it was stolen from somewhere else, but it appears that we're so joking. You got more kudos because we're going, where did you find this? And she wrote it herself. So, but it seems like what Ryan was trying to say was that listening to what everybody had, their concerns were, and what they wanted to keep, and be able to move forward with and use. This allows us to do that, and so that's all.
Other comments, questions? Are we ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
Nice work, everybody.
Okay. Oh my goodness. All right, so items for March, please.
It sounds like we need to constitute our art advisory group.
Yes, actually, what I think should happen, maybe Andrea would like to weigh in on this. What I think should happen is that they should write their first statement of purpose right off the bat, and since they have this project, the mural project going, then I think once we get the statement of purpose, what should happen is that Ryan and I should look at the 12-month forecast and pick a time that we can plug it in when when we don't have too many other things. That's my suggestion. Andrea, do you have thoughts on this?
So the advisory group has to come up with this statement of purpose.
Yes.
Okay. Well, right now, we were waiting for the students to come back with the timetable, right? And when we can go see their work. I think I need to call Rocco Odo. But that's the only thing we have going on right now in Art Advisory Group. What do we call it? Art Advisory Group, yeah.
Yes.
So maybe Ryan can, or Maureen can put out an email to the board that explaining this new policy and how things have changed and what we need to do to comply with the policy. And, we're basically going to meet, it's now February 8th, 16th. Either March, the first Monday in March, or the first Monday in April, which would be really bad for me, both of them, but it is what it is.
You're saying to set that meeting up to do the statement of purpose? I'm sorry.
I mean, I think we have to let all the members know how things have changed.
The members of the art,
Policy.
the members of the current art acquisition committee.
No,
Okay.
and it doesn't exist anymore.
Well, those members, that's
Those-
what she,
But those people who are currently on it.
Right, so
That's-
now they will become members of the art advisory group, is that what it would be called?
yes.
Okay, so what you're saying is we need to inform them, Ryan needs to send something to all of those people.
Because right
Right,
now, the
because
art,
we can't just
yeah, the art
change
committee
it,
is
I
acting
mean,
without
we changed it.
sanction.
Right.
But I think they need to be notified
Yeah.
either,
Sure, sure.
Don't you?
Yeah,
That's my job.
Oh, okay.
Andrea, I think that's probably my job.
okay, then you.
Okay, I will do it.
So, and, let them know, and that we're going to need to discuss it at our next meeting, and should that be the first Monday in March?
well, let me ask the question, just as a flying ointment. Can they meet to discuss their group statement of purpose should be before they have a group that would meet.
It says that the
No.
board forms the
Yeah,
group,
the board forms the group, so that should be,
so that should.
Well, then I guess the board has to form the group before the group can meet.
I think that this group has been existing and can transition to this new format without us having to start from scratch. That's just my feeling about it.
Can I make a motion to that effect?
Yes. I mean, what do other people think about that?
I like
Although
that
we,
idea, although I think we do need a motion for it.
Yeah.
Go, Andrea.
I move that the former art committee will be called the Art Advisory Group which will meet to discuss statement of purpose as soon as they, as soon as they can meet.
Yeah, as soon as
Somebody
possible.
else would switch that for me, Nancy?
Yeah.
As soon as they are able.
And that fits perfectly with the way the policy 1057 is written, because the board forms the group, and then the next thing is upon the formation of the group, they do the statement of purpose.
Anyone want to
Is
second?
there a
I'll
second
second.
to the motion?
George seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, great. What else? For next time, please. Your agenda item. Nothing? Okay. So next is exec session. Can I have a motion for that, please?
I move that we enter into executive session to review the performance of the library executive director.
I'll second that. We have a roll call, please?
We do.
Please. Is there a discussion? Roll call.
Sheldon,
Aye.
Caldwell,
Aye.
Kotzinis,
Aye.
Barkabisi,
Aye.
Nimi. Aye. Beckwith,
Aye.
Deal absent, ayes have it. Executive session, 8:20.